Yeah, no, it was like 2 weeks ago, so. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Laura. We can get started. I'd like to call to order the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting for July 27th, 2020. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Present.
Mr. Screvy-Tennis?
Here.
Mr. Khan?
Here.
Mr. McPartland?
Here.
Mr. DiArpino? Mr. Oster?
Here.
Ms. Shenfield?
Here.
Ms. Gold?
Present.
Chairman Walsh?
Here. Okay, thank you, Mr. Henry. We have everybody. Okay, next up is approval of minutes. We have no minutes tonight, so we'll get caught up hopefully at the next meeting. And we have no public hearings tonight. So, Laura, did anybody check in for privilege of the floor?
No, I haven't received any requests for privilege of the floor tonight.
Okay, thank you, Laura. No requests for privilege of the floor, so we'll move on. We have no unfinished business, so I'll take us right to new business tonight. So first up under new business, we have our first resolution tonight. Resolution, got buzzed in here. Excuse me. New business, resolution 2020-21, a resolution for site plan amendment for Ace Hardware at 1448 Balltown Road. Packet was uploaded and modified today for revision 2 of the resolution, so everybody should have that revision. And I will just summarize as usual, just for the public and for make sure it's captured. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission has determined that the proposed waiver for 4 additional 2-foot by 7-foot, 14 square foot each, 56 square feet total, facade signs on the western facade and 1 additional 3-foot, 8-inch times 6-foot for a total of 22 square foot sign on the eastern facade and 1 freestanding primary monument sign on a property less than 5 acres representing an individual business that is 7-foot, 9 3/4 inch from the front property line and 21-foot, 4 1/4 from the side property line on Balltown Road, and 1 secondary monument sign on Knott Street that is 10-foot, 5/8 inch from the sidewalk on Knott Street and 11-foot, 3 1/2 inch from the private road connecting Knott Street to the parking lot of 1448 Balltown Road, and 1 6-foot times 10 inch for a total of 5 square feet directional sign on Balltown Road that's 4-foot, 8 5/8 inch above the road would have a minimum negative effect on aesthetics and is compatible with existing neighborhood character. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant said waivers to allow for the signage as described, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall pursue any further town approval requirements for the secondary monument sign on Knott Street prior to the installation of said monument sign. 2, illumination of the monument sign shall only be allowed from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Mr. Connor or Mr. Laflamme, do I have a motion?
Motion that we adopt the resolution.
Okay. Motion made for adoption by Mr. Khan.
I second that, Chairman.
And seconded by Mr. Laflamme, and we can have some discussion. You want to go ahead, Mr. Khan? Or you want me to?
So I think the last time we were in a meeting, we saw a set of proposed signs, and between then and now, there was, quite a bit of rework. I think probably one of the biggest breakthroughs was the separation of the monument sign for the business with the directional signs. And in addition to that, we moved to uniformity of all signs being lit with the Cambria style external lighting. And we also, we made a little bit of progress on getting at least the color combinations on the facade sign to be a little bit more better. But, I think right now in terms of the all of those elements, plus the fact that this business being situated where it is on the needing a waiver for less than 5 acres single business still having monument signs. I think we all, understand why that's necessary in the location it's in, and also the fact that there's two entrances. So I think I got most of the items covered. I know we had, I do want to thank, Mr. Clark and Laura for keeping us well informed as, the discussions with the applicant were progressing. So it's really if any of the other planning board members have any issues, with what's currently being proposed.
I think the only thing we need to discuss was the item that Ms. Gold sent out, which I thought was a good pickup. I missed it earlier when I looked over the resolution. Is that several locations in a resolution that identifies as Knott Street when in actuality it's Knott Street East. So that brings up two things for me. One is that we can do just a friendly modification of the resolution to have Clark or Laura go back and just do a search and replace or add East after Knott Street everywhere in the resolution, just for make it clear. But the thing that comes up is the signage for the one sign that says basically go around the corner basically to Knott Street. Should that sign, does that need to be changed to say Knott Street East, or have an E added after Knott so that it's clear the location? So I guess that's a question for either the applicant or board members.
Well, I mean, obviously, so the first consideration relative to the signs is obviously that it's going to take up some more room, right? That's why if we were to do it, I'd prefer the E instead of the East. But I guess I'll ask the question, and Leslie, I understand where you were coming from. So I'm talking specifically just in what the sign actually says. Do we all feel it's necessary?
Well, I don't know.
Is there a certain logic
I don't know if the applicant or Mr. Grasso, if there were added E after the Knott Street E period on the sign, is there enough room to be able to do that without causing any heartburn? I guess.
We can do it, D'Angelo. But the only thing is the letters might have to become smaller. That's all. We're trying to keep it as big as possible.
Yeah, I understand that. So it's really, I guess, a question. Yep. Question for the board. If it's essential.
I guess I didn't get a chance to check this before the meeting because I saw Leslie's note late. What is Google Maps call that street?
Well, I didn't look it up. But I know it's not Street East, and that's why I thought it was a good catch by Leslie.
We can do it now. It's one of the benefits of doing everything online.
Like every single planning board member right now is taking it.
They have to call it. Yeah, they do call it Knott Street East.
It's called Knott Street East.
Yeah, on Google. It turns to Knott Street. It turns into Knott Street East.
Yep. Well, one option is to leave. Just modify the resolution. Leave the sign because the sign does have like a. I could pull it up here, but it has a directional. Right, it says go up and it has a right, so it's kind of clear to go around the corner. We just want to make sure it's okay. That's all. What do you think, Chris? Anything on that?
So the old Morgan Stanley sign said enter on Knott Street extension.
I think if the question is whether we should have E for East or not, I do think we should. I know there's a space issue. I would be okay with E versus East as per Jengus's recommendation too.
I wonder if it's a sign, if we could say enter on Knott East and leave the street out. Or do you think that would be too confusing? Because then you're losing the ST period and then directing it to the right side of Knott.
That works for me also. Whatever, I know they want to keep it as big as possible.
Yeah.
But I think we should have the right street name on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And that's why I asked. The Google, I think, however, it's reflected on Google Maps and the initial does it. Because there actually is not a directional arrow in the sign, right? In the drawing packet.
Did it change? I mean, maybe I'm thinking of an earlier revision.
Yeah, I think there was an earlier one. So I think the only option is to whatever reduction in letters, just to at least get a Knott Street E in there. So it was a good catch by Leslie. I think we do need to have the sign reflect the east.
Okay. All right. So let me make a motion that we modify the resolution in two ways. One, anywhere in the resolution where not street is identified at several locations, we just add the word east. The planning office can do that. And on the monument sign that tells us, the directional sign that tells us to go to Knott Street, we have an E period added. And I can leave it to the I guess the planning office, or whether you want to remove the street and just say not east or not E Street. Either way, I'm good. Whatever works.
I think let's label it however Google has it and put the E in the street in the right place. And if it means that the sign fonts drop a little bit, that's.
You don't need the period. You could say enter on Knott Street, like street with no period, and then E.
E, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Within.
We can let the applicant try to squeeze that in the best way to get Knott Street east, whether you get rid of periods or however it works out. I think just to be correct, right?
Right.
All right. So I have a motion, basically to modify the resolution and to add the E, some format to the signage, directional signage. So I have a second on that.
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor of the modification of the resolution and of the sign signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Do we have anybody that's opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, we have a modified resolution to go forward. Any other comments or discussion or input from the applicant at all?
Yeah, the only input I have is that regarding the last point, illumination of a monument sign should be only allowed from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I thought that was more for the sign on the building. I didn't realize also on the monument sign itself, because that will make it very dark at night.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw it in the resolution. So it was 5 a.m. So basically, 5 a.m. during the winter, it's dark. So that's why I allow it to go on. But shut off at 10. What was your thought? Is that Mr. Grasso? Were you thinking that you want to have the monument sign lit all the time? Is that correct?
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, the monument sign to be on. I understand on the building. I know there was a little concern with the building because maybe, though I don't think it's going to reach the residents across the street, but I know there was concern that may bounce off from the building and then go to the resident across the street. So I kind of understood that part of it, and I thought that was the 10 p.m., shutting it off at 10 p.m. But the monument itself is facing on the street, and there should be, that's just, car traffic. So it'd be good to advertise that our business on cars that's driving by, and I don't think that goes across.
Right.
And I don't think it doesn't go in the residential area either, because it'd be where the cars are facing.
Okay, thank you. Get some feedback from the board. So there's 2 monument signs, right? Knott Street East and on Balltown. So I think the request is to leave to have the opportunity to keep the monument sign on Balltown lit beyond 10 p.m.
So
Yeah.
I mean, the concern here is obviously for the residences across the street in Balltown, which there are. But do we have a uniformity thing with other signs? I mean, it would be the KinderCare, the lawyer's office, and the mostly KinderCare, right? That's the one that would apply here.
And CVS. I mean, CVS could be factored in there.
Yeah.
Gas station stewards.
KinderCare is not lit.
Right.
No, that's right.
The thing that's interesting is that it only says monument signs. So is the intention to leave all the facade signs lit all the time?
No, sorry.
The facade sign,
Yeah.
facade signs we could shut off. I mean, I'm fine with that.
I do recall that we discussed shutting off the facade signs,
Yeah.
right?
We have a timer, right? We have to discuss dimming them as well, which was a discussion point. I don't know. I think we wanted the ability to have it turned off or dimmed on a schedule.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a comment or request here from the applicant on condition number 2 for some kind of clarification. So it sounds like all facade signs can only be lit from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that correct? Was that the intent of the planning office on that one?
The intent of the planning office was for all signs, so I apologize for putting the monument in there. But I mean, I do agree that the directional lighting on the monument sign is going to be, you know, south and north on the street, and not, you know. So I mean, I'm okay with whatever you guys want.
I mean that you know, for the applicant, Angelo, that area is.
Sorry,
It's
Angela, can you mute yourself?
It's fairly bright. And I mean, I know when I drive by there, I could always see the KinderCare sign at night. So I
Oh, right.
actually,
Even though it's not
I'm actually
lit.
coming from a perspective of the uniformity and to some extent to the press. It is a residential neighborhood across the street. And so I'm hoping that maybe we could just come to an agreement that if those lights were shut off in that time period, maybe if we extended it an hour or something, you know, because the other thing is too is just the traffic.
Let me,
Right, you're not, you know, the effect is not going to get lower number of cars that late at night, etc. Right, so I think we can hopefully reach an agreement here. I'm okay if that 10 p.m. was 11 p.m.
So one option would be to modify condition number 2 to say elimination of all signs except for the Balltown roadside be from 5 to 10. And maybe what we could do, like we've done in the past, or we're doing with the JCC, is that the lights are dimmable, right? They're controllable, right, Mr. Costa or Mr. Grasso? Maybe
Yes, they're dimmable.
So
They are
one
dimmable,
option
yeah.
would be to set the level of light on Balltown Road, to give it a try with the applicant and work it out. Just a suggestion, you know. Let's say
I can dim it to, like, say 50%, 75% on Balltown Road. The building itself, you know, we could shut that off, but the main road, if you want to lessen the limits on it, I can live with that, definitely.
You have to excuse me 1 second. I cut myself apparently shaving. I gotta grab something to catch the blood here. Excuse me.
Okay, hopefully it's
So, Jengus, do you want me to find that language that we used on the dimmable and the planning board kind of setting the levels from the JCC sign really quick?
Yes, I think that's the direction. Chris, you're okay with that? Rest of the planning board?
Yes, sir.
We'll at least make an evaluation of it. I mean, this one, we just need to get an understanding of what the impact is across the street.
Understood.
Okay, so the language we had for JCC was following the installation of the sign, there will be a 2-week trial period after which the applicant will meet with the planning department and planning board project leads to finalize the appropriate color and brightness, but we wouldn't need color, of the sign, which will be recorded in a memorandum and attached to the final copy of the filed resolution.
Right.
So we could change that to following the installation of the monument sign on Balltown Road. There will be a 2-week trial period, which we finalize the appropriate brightness settings for the sign at night, which will be recorded in the memorandum and attached to the final copy of the filed resolution.
So what you're stating, Laura, is going to be a condition number 3, right?
Yeah, here, I'll share mine so we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, to me, I think that's a nice compromise for the applicant, and then that can be worked out. Mr. Khan and Mr. Laflamme, we can have you involved and also in that decision. Yeah. And I would be good with the planning office and you guys working that out with the applicant.
Yep, perfect, Laura. That's where. Okay. I'm telling you, these virtual meetings are a lot more precise for seeing stuff like this.
Okay, so which of the brightness? Well, let's say appropriate nighttime brightness settings of the sign, or do we want to say the appropriate brightness settings for the signs between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.?
Yeah, maybe that's right. Yeah.
That's great. That would help.
Yeah.
Recorded in the memorandum and attached to the final copy of the resolution. Okay, so that's consistent with what we've done before. It allows and Kevin, I think, mentioned this, potentially the highway department can say yes to that sign. It might have to go to the town board. So this condition just says whatever we need to do to put that secondary monument sign. The planning board is okay with it, but it might need a couple more approvals. And then this one will be all the signs will be illuminated between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., excepting the Balltown Road monument sign. And then this would be following the installation of the Balltown monument sign. We will finalize the appropriate brightness settings between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.
Perfect. Chris, I'm perfectly fine with the way this is written.
I agree. I can read it. I'm reading it too.
Angelo, that makes sense to you?
Yes, thank you very much for working me on this.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Khan to modify the resolution as stated by Laura Robertson. Basically, the second modification of the resolution regarding the signage. Previous condition number 2 be modified. Well, that would be left the same, right? Previous condition number 2.
Yeah, it's modified to remove.
Yeah, it did get
Remove the word monument, and then we'll add condition 3, which basically has a follow-up to be able to set the intensity or lack of intensity based on the field visit after the sign's installed.
Right.
Okay. So that was by Mr. Khan. Do we have a second?
I second.
Laflamme? Seconded by Mr. Laflamme. All those in favor of modifying the resolution as stated, signify by saying aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, hearing no one opposed, then we have a second amendment to this resolution. Any other
So I just
additional?
have one last question if no planning board members have anything else. And this is for Clark or Laura. On the Knott Street monument sign, are we good with the current setbacks and the sight distances for traffic?
So we kind of looked at it. The way that it's proposed, it is setting back farther than the existing Morgan Stanley sign. The existing Morgan Stanley sign is actually
small.
still there. It's all whited out. And that's probably about 5 feet from the sidewalk. The proposal is about 10 feet from the sidewalk. It's unclear because the right-of-way isn't delineated on Knott Street, whether that's in or out of the right-of-way. It's definitely farther back.
Okay.
And one of the things that we can look at, if it, it's probably going to need highway approval, whether or not it needs highway or town board, that's something that the lawyers can decide. But there's a big hill. So I'm wondering if you push it too far back, if you'll push it up the hill and then nobody will be able to see it. There's quite a bit of sign-wise topography there.
Right. And that Morgan Stanley sign is there, and I see it. It's just a blank sign, but it is it's a small sign too. The point you're making though, number 1 catches then if the highway department, so is sightline something they're gonna look at? I mean,
yeah, they do.
Yes, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That
Okay.
was a question I had.
All right, thank you, Mr. Khan. Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? The applicant? Any of the same? Okay. Hearing no other further comments regarding this resolution, Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll for the modified amended resolution?
Mr. Flynn,
Aye.
Mr. Scributinus,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr.
Can you hear
McPartland.
me?
Aye.
Yes, Mr. Diarpino,
Aye.
Mr. Oster,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Just like to add thank you to the planning office for their hard work on this, and also thank you to the applicant for being receptive to our needs for the signage in this area. It is part of the town center overlay district, and we're trying to be careful here and be careful about setting precedent. And I think this is a good compromise, and I think we got a good project here, and I wish them the best of the luck. So thank you, Mr. Grasso. Thank you, Mr. Costa, and please pass our thanks on to Mr. Dingley also.
Thank you.
Yes. And when
Thank
do
you as
think-
well.
When is actual work going to get rolling?
We are planning to close on the property next week, and we plan to roll probably in about 2 weeks. if we close next week.
Awesome.
Great.
All right.
So we're very excited, and thank you for working with us on this.
All right.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you in the neighborhood.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on to the next resolution. Next resolution being Resolution 2020-22, a resolution for site plan approval for a building addition and facade upgrade at 2804 Aqueduct Road. And for that resolution, the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced Mattia Restoration Site Plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves the site plan of a second-story addition, installation of public utilities, and facade changes at 2804 Aqueduct Road, Niskuna, with the following conditions. Number 1, the final facade changes shall be reviewed and approved by the Architectural Review Board. 2, the conditions of Resolution 2018-12 for this property remain in effect, including A, the storage in the side and front yard to the east of the building shall be limited to the fenced-in area and be maintained in a neat and orderly fashion. The applicant shall install and maintain landscaping to screen the fencing and storage from adjacent properties. B, storage in the side yard on the west of the building is limited to the parking of a work trailer and or work vehicles and should not be used to store materials or loose objects of any kind. The applicant shall install and maintain landscaping to screen the work trailers and adjacent properties. And C, all landscaping associated with screening the outdoor storage shall be maintained in good condition for the duration of the outdoor storage. Okay, Mr. Laflamme, do I have a motion?
I move to approve this site plan.
Great. Move for approval of the resolution by Mr. Laflamme. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a seconded by Mr. Oster. Thank you both. And discussion. I got just one item. And that's the, we need to amend the first paragraph or the opening paragraph of the resolution. The date is March of 2020, and it's the 27th day of July 2020. So we just need to do a friendly amendment to that typo. That's all. Okay. I assume we're all okay with just modifying the date, right? Anybody opposed to that?
No.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, concerns, or modifications from the board regarding the resolution? Any concerns from the applicant? I think Mr. Mattia is on.
Mattia is, yeah, Artur is on. I believe he's jumped on, but I don't know if he has any concerns.
Okay.
I will say that this will be very helpful to his business. We reviewed the site plan, we looked at the distances and the offsets. The idea is just to get a working bathroom, and some space to conduct, what would be modernized accommodations for a light industrial type of building. So this is all very good, and I think everything that was listed in the resolution is consistent with what his expectations are, and he's aware that we want to align the exterior design materials with some of the changes that are occurring in that area, like the river's ledge. I know that when we do the architectural review with our new board, we will be using some of the materials used in that structure across the street to keep it in like kind. Applicants are aware that's part of why we're getting this approval, so we can go to that next step.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laflamme.
And so, Chris, we'll expect to see some kind of more representative drawings, right, at some point?
Yeah, now that at least he knows what his options are, he'll secure an architect. He's got someone selected, is what he indicated. He'll have the architectural designs actually drafted of the structure itself, and then the exterior materials will be working with the architectural review board with that.
Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify, because when we were last talking about this, a single family residential home or like residential unit isn't allowed in the zoning, but as an accessory use, which I put in the agenda statement, you are allowed to have an accessory use to the principal use of light manufacturing that includes a residential unit up to 4 bedrooms. So I do think that if he is staying there and, it is kind of a living space / office, it's okay. And then just be aware that you can't build that and then remove the light industrial part, because it's a secondary use, not a principal. And then the other thing is, right now, the way the resolution is written, it wouldn't come back to the planning board or go to the architectural review board. So if you do want to kind of see the facade again, you might want to change that, Or if you kind of have an idea of where you want the facade sign to go, but you don't mind entrusting it to the Architectural Review Board, you might just want to discuss it so that you can give and outline your thoughts to the Architectural Review Board, so that they can kind of work within the framework of what you guys were thinking, or you can just leave it up to them. I know Mr. Scrivatanis was kicked off last time, but he did email me that he may not be favoring of the kind of alpine chalet style, which I of course love, but doesn't necessarily fit into the neighborhood. So you just might want to comment on where you want to see that facade going for the record to guide the Architectural Review Board, unless you just want to leave it up to them. Entirely up to you guys.
Well, the only question or comment I would have is that Mr. DiArpino is our liaison, right, to the Architectural Review Board. He's not actually a member, but I'm assuming he attends all meetings. And I have good faith in Mr. DiArpino's skill and decision making. That you know, for me, I'm okay with leaving it up to the Architectural Review Board. But Mr. Scrivatanis has certain concerns. You know, we should at least, you know, let David know so he can represent us wisely.
I'll certainly defer to the Architectural Review Board.
Right.
Okay.
And when I made the comment, we, quote unquote, we will see, you know, better representative drawings, I meant be the town, either the building department or the Architectural Review Board or someone. I didn't mean the planning board.
Okay.
I didn't mean exclusively the planning board.
All right. So I think we're okay with the resolution as prepared, except for the minor change for the date. And is there a scheduled meeting for the Architectural Review Board, or are we just waiting on a need for things to review?
When is the next? I don't know if Art is speaking.
The next meeting is August 12th. August 12th.
So he may need some. I think it would be prudent to get a design from an architect, at least a general, you know, understanding of what the space, you know, proportions, space, keeping within our code, 35 feet. That's what I'm thinking. Unless Dave, you'd like to have that review prior to architectural engagement. The applicant's open to either.
So I think that giving him 3 weeks is a pretty tight timeline.
Yeah.
They got to measure the existing building. Not that it's very complex, but it's going to take probably a couple months to go through and get a couple sketch designs going and get something back that would at least have the Architectural Review Board members something solid for them to comment on. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to spend the better part of this year designing, and then depending on how quickly he can get a design that he's happy with, I think maybe it would be wise if he does have something that's relatively reasonable and aesthetically good. In theory, he could probably start it at the end of the summer if things move pretty quickly. But in all likelihood, it probably would start next year and give him plenty of time to do the planning and then line up everything that he needs, contractor, you know, money for building, whatever it is.
Okay.
Plus, the Architectural Review Board can review items on an interim basis. We just meet formally once a month. So on a larger project like this, which may need some input, we talked about some of the members, whether it just be one or the 3 committee members, to go and actually do intermediate meetings with applicants so that they could take a look at what was there to help the process go a little quicker.
Excellent. All right, good. You know, the one thing I did that I stressed was my desire to have the materials be similar or certainly congruent, you know, in the same aesthetic as the River's Ledge, which is not obviously constructed yet. So I think what I'd like to do is get those materials at least to the Architectural Review Board for the purpose of preparing that discussion. So I could help with that. I don't know if Laura, if I would just send some of the elevations from River's Ledge. You know, I don't know if things have changed at all. You know, I don't think it has, but if anything has changed, we might want to just share that with the Architectural Review Board in preparation for that meeting.
Yeah, we can get the most recent drawings for the River's Ledge. The thing that might be a little complex about matching River's Ledge is the 160 units, 8 unit or 10 unit, no, whatever unit buildings that are 16 units, and whatever they are tucked back away from the road. And the facades that they haven't really decided on are the ones that will actually be reflected on the road, which would be like you know, if they can get the additional 100 units for the senior living center.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you want to match the ones that you can't really see, or you want to look again at the design sketches for the senior center, but those ones are much more rough than the kind of internal apartment building. So I don't know. It might be.
I'd start with both. The ones that are not the senior centers are going to still be visible heading, you know, certainly heading west. You know, and then the next building will be on the left side will be Matia's building. So I think it's a good starting point. It gives at least something that's current and that we've already approved. So.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Anybody else have any comments? Again, I see Mr. Mattia is with us tonight. If he has no comments, that's okay also. If he does, you're welcome to go up and mute Mr. Mattia and add anything you wish, or if you have any questions. If not, we'll proceed, I guess. Okay. All right, Mr. Henry, please call the roll.
Mr. LaFlamme.
Aye.
Mr. Scributinus.
Aye.
Mr. Khan.
Aye.
Mr. McPartland.
Aye.
Mr. Diarpino.
Aye.
Mr. Oster.
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The motion carries and the resolution is passed. I think we'll have a good product there. I know the Architectural Review Board will keep us straight. So thank you very much for everybody. Congratulations, Mr. Mattia. We'll see the great changes that happen down on Aqueduct Road. Okay, we'll move on to resolutions. Next resolution is Resolution 2020-23, a resolution for sketch plan approval for a 2-lot minor subdivision at 859 Pierce Road. And that resolution basically states that this planning board and zoning commission does hereby classify this sketch plan as a minor subdivision as defined by Chapter 189 of the Code of the Town of Niskayuna. And be it further resolved that the planning board and zoning commission does hereby grant sketch plan approval for a 2-lot minor subdivision at 859 Pierce Road, as shown on the map entitled Subdivisions of Lands of Kenite, Town of Niskayuna, Schenectady County, New York, by Azimuth Surveying and Cartography, dated July 10th, 2020. Mr. Diarpino, do I have a motion?
I so move.
Move for approval by Mr. Diarpino. Do I have a second?
Second.
And that was seconded by, I think it was Mr. McPartland that came through the wire ahead of Mr. Oster there. So, okay, so we have a motion and a second, and discussion. Anybody?
The only question I had was,
Yeah,
so with the subdivision, there's a 25-foot easement that's along the front of the main property. If that parcel was sold off, and say it was sold off to an adjacent parcel owner on the back side of the property, would that easement still go with it?
It's not an easement, it's a lot line. It's not an easement.
Oh, it's a lot line?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it would have to. Well, it would have to, because otherwise it doesn't have frontage on an approved street. So that lot can't exist without that 20 frontage. New York State requires 15. Our code requires 100, but they got the waiver from the zoning board of 75 feet. So they're allowable as a, that part of meeting the zoning criteria. It's okay if it's 25, but you couldn't create the lot without that attachment to Pierce Road. If the adjacent property owner wanted to do something further back there, he would have to extend right of way in some way.
Okay. I guess that's the second part of the question, was if they had to extend the right of way. Could that be a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it, and I was not here when the Gifford subdivision went through. It's kind of like 3 lots, and one of them wraps around. There's a potential that you could put a cul-de-sac in there, and it could be private or public. There's really not very much difference between the requirements for private or public, except for maybe the size of the right-of-way. but the road pretty much has to be built the same because of fire and emergency access. But like we had discussed, and I think Kevin and I talked about it, like typically on these subdivisions, we would put a no further subdivision clause in this. But if we do feel like there's a possibility that that rear could be subdivided and rearranged, then maybe you guys just want to leave that out because you understand that there could be a possibility and it may not be detrimental to the area, you know, to have that.
Yeah, that was my thought, is that we, you know, the resolution as it stands is good enough if they go forward. If there's something that happens where somebody purchases the other lot and wants to possibly combine, it's going to have to come back through us anyway, was my view. In this case, it wasn't like some of the past cases where we've run into where we definitely didn't want anything else to occur. If somebody came forward and purchased this land and wanted to combine it, you know, they could combine it and then re-subdivide it in some way. But it would have to come through us, is my opinion. So
right, and so okay with that statement, Chairman Walsh, if we go down the path we're on right now, then the planning board is okay with further development taking place, with appropriate site plan further development taking place in that area.
We'd be okay to consider further development.
I would just suggest maybe if there's any way, I know we've explored this before, that we could condition that future possibility on a full SWIP, or that it would trigger subdivision review. I think that is something we could take care of now.
So can we take, so I agree 100% with the intent of what you said, Mr. McPartland. The question is, can we take care of it on this application? Does it become a condition on this application? I think the answer is yes. I'm just asking.
Yeah, to me that sounds reasonable because we avoid this segmentation, right? If there was a continuation of previous minor subdivisions and another minor subdivision, you know, that would be like, even if it wasn't intentional, it'd be segmentation. So if we were to have the condition now to enter some concerns, I think when we had that previous Gifford subdivision, I think there was concerns from personnel about our neighbors or people regarding drainage concerns. So if we were to put the you know, the full SWIP in there, or if it's a full SWIP, or you know, refer to the planning officer's recommendation or the attorney, or some modification of that, a detailed stormwater analysis, whatever words are appropriate, I'd be okay with that.
Yes, I just want to verify, and maybe it's Alexis who speaks up, that we can do that. Like I said, I think we can. I just want to make sure that we
can. Mute.
Yeah.
Can I ask Mr. Chairman, or for a question for Laura, have we got any other inquiries on any other parcels located on Pierce Road? For instance, if you go to PDF page of the package 42, the other parcels, which 876, 888, those large parcels, has anybody else made inquiries about subdivisions? Parcel development?
You know, I think there was a question about this project, but all it was a question. So there hasn't been anybody's come forward to me saying we're interested in a subdivision or you know. So I guess for me it would be a no.
Right, that's coming to the planning board, but I mean, based on the record of the last meeting, the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Nugent, they did mention that someone was interested, right? An adjacent neighbor.
Well, what I heard was there was a potential for adjacent neighbor, but we're going to proceed with the 2-lot minor subdivision as is, because you can't guess whether
No, agreed. I thought Mr. Scribitenis' question was more, do we know if there's an interest? I mean, I have an expectation that someone will want to further subdivide, will purchase and want to further subdivide that area. Right?
Yeah,
I think there's
like back in here, there's a potential, like with this little hanging thing over here. But looking at the stormwater,
especially if it's a neighbor that already owns.
Talking about over here though, so these lots haven't been changed and they are still large. These are kind of like the last large lots, right? This is what you were talking about, right? I have not received any inquiries about these 3.
So I guess in applying what Mr. McPartland just said, I just think if there's developing some consistency across future development as they may occur, because I really like what Patrick had to state. So we start to apply just a standard for future opportunities that come to us on Pierce Road.
Yeah, I think it's more of the opportunity for lots that have the potential for water concerns, right? It isn't like every lot. It's for, we want to, again, avoid the segmentation. If you had a previous minor subdivision, this minor subdivision, and then lots get recombined, I think that's what we're trying to avoid, right? Is we want to make sure due diligence on the stormwater.
I think to Mr. Scribitennis' point, I mean, if anyone wants to develop those other lots, it would be defined either as a major or minor, and we would treat it accordingly. In this case, we just want to, to preclude a potential sequential minor subdivisions, right? That's the key thing. By at least putting in the key element that would be required of a major subdivision for any future subdivision of this.
Okay. Do we have a suggestion from the planning office on some kind of condition that we could add on that?
Well, so obviously where we just looked at this is the Vincenzo Drive subdivision. And during sketch plan, is it sketch plan? Oh no, during seeker determination. So I think we're okay with just sketch plan for now, but during seeker determination is when we really took a look at what we wanted to see. And that was when we talked about the deed restrictions. We talked about the plat note for the seeker. So I think that to be consistent with our past practices, for the record, when we're doing sketch plan, we can discuss if that's something we want to set. And then when we're making a seeker determination, if we feel like, the drainage concerns with 2 large parcels are largely met by the fact that most of the drainage can be handled on site, but future subdivision may make smaller and tighter lots, so the drainage may become an issue. That would be where we would say, yeah, I mean, I think we were had to make a new note, but it'd be something to the effect that, a plat note states that any future subdivision to these properties will require, a full SWIP and full drainage analysis or something like that. And we would put it both in the seeker and the final resolution would be my recommendation.
That sounds great, Laura. And that's being consistent, like you said, with Vincenzo. So it basically just starts the process because we're going to have to call for, we have to have a seeker determination and call for a public hearing. So, this resolution, it sounds like it's okay the way it is. And then when we hear from the public, maybe we'll hear about drainage concerns, and whatever we hear, then we'll include in our final determination or final resolution granting subdivision approval here, minor subdivision approval. Sounds good, Laura? Doing it that way?
Yeah, because the sketch plan is very rough. We actually didn't have any conditions in sketch plan for that subdivision either. So that's just the conceptual idea. And then when we're looking at environmental impacts, we include it. And then when we're looking at final subdivision, we include it.
That's great, Laura. And Mr. McPartland, I appreciate that. And it's something good that we talked about tonight. So the applicant now is aware of it too. And anybody else that's listening in or joining in the meeting or will in the future. So that's something we'll have to talk about. So right now, I think we're still standing with the resolution as prepared. Okay. And we do already have a motion in a second. Any other questions or comments on the sketch plan approval resolution? No. One thing we will have to talk about, Laura, is that we don't have for discussion tonight this project. So I know were we thinking about calling for a public hearing at the next meeting or doing the secret determination? Can we do that now, or do we need to add an agenda item to the discussion portion to just talk about this?
Oh, I think you can do that now. I apologize. It is better to have it as a discussion item, but I think you can do it now. The closeout applicant. Okay. Yeah, my recommendation would be to call for a public hearing. There's not a lot of engineering to the subdivision. It's probably just good to get it out there and get the public comments. The CAC did take a look at it in 2019, and we are moving forward with their 2019 recommendation. And I did send out the seeker letters I think last week, so they will come in time if you guys wanted to call for a public hearing.
Okay. Let's finish this resolution first to keep them separate, okay? All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns with the resolution? We're sticking with the resolution as prepared, and we'll take up any concerns with stormwater in the future. Any other questions or comments on the resolution? No? Okay. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. O'Flynn. Mr. Laflamme,
There he is.
The mute banner is just playing games with me. Yes, aye.
Mr. Scributinus,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartland,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Mr. Oster,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The resolution is passed. Sketch plan is approved. And Mr. DiArpino, are you okay with calling for a public hearing for the next meeting regarding this minor subdivision?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, so we'll have well, for the next meeting, we'll have a resolution calling for a public hearing and a secret determination. And we can work out the verbiage about protecting any stormwater concerns as part of that. Okay? Does that sound good, planning office?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And good night. So I think you're all set unless you have any questions, concerns, or anything.
When will that public hearing be then?
It would be at the August 10th meeting.
Okay, August.
No, that would be when we call for the public hearing.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, Laura. You're absolutely correct. Yes. We would call for the public hearing, and then it would be there's 2 meetings in August. I believe it would be the 24th then, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you guys are going to be away or something and you'd like to push it, we can,
No, with COVID, we're home
We're
watching
home.
the grandkids. So, yeah, no, we're here.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Judy and I talked about they do have kind of a time crunch as the summer turns into fall. So like if we're listening and we're hearing and we do as much preparation for this as we can, I think they are requesting, if possible, to have a tentative resolution after we call for a public hearing, because they are snowbirds.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with that if Mr. DiArpino is. I mean, if we hear anything unique at the public hearing that causes us concern, well, then we can modify or punt whatever we need to do. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Tentative resolution also the same night as the public hearing? Okay. Hearing no one opposed, seeing some head nods and thumbs up, then we'll give that a whirl to keep the schedule as tight as possible for the tonight's. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you, everyone. And let's see, we have one last resolution tonight, Resolution 2020-24, a resolution for site plan approval for a tenant change at 2207, 2209 Knott Street. And that resolution is the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced Lenges Pharmacy site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approve the site plan and tenant change. And I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Oster. Thank you. And as far as discussion goes, we have Mr. Lange online also here, right? Lange, right? Yeah, you may have to unmute yourself, but I see that he's still here with us. My only concern was when I did the site visit.
I'm here. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lange. My only concern was, this is great, first of all, especially if it's expansion of the business. It's a great location and everything, so I fully support it. And I don't want to cause any heartburn for anybody. But when I took a look my site visit, I guess the primary concern I have is that parking spot on this would be the west entrance. Somebody pulls in there and somebody's walking out of that door. It's kind of like a safety concern. So when we're doing a tenant change in site plan, it's an opportunity to address any other concerns. I know the other door, another doors at the complex might be similar, but again, this is a site plan, so it gives the opportunity to take a look at things. I thought, and I'll throw it out to the board, is that it looks like you have more than adequate parking If you would take that one spot that's in front of that west entrance and just stripe it so that that's a no parking, that would allow ease of access to that door for customers, especially if they're disabled, handicapped, and it would prevent any safety concern, like somebody coming out that door and somebody with poor driving skills going too fast toward the door, or scaring them, or losing control and hurting someone. So that was my thought, is maybe just striping that parking spot that's directly in front of the west door. Mr. Lange or anybody in the planning board have any concerns or comments regarding that?
I just wanted to that
we were actually planning on the handicap. Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Lange.
Yes, it will. And the handicap spot that's on the corner of the building right now, we're actually planning on moving it down to be in front, not in front of the door, but have the spot in front of the door be the no parking area and having a handicapped on one side. Because where the handicap parking spot is now, no matter what's done to Knott Street, it will be lost. Whatever they do to the front of Knott Street, that corner is going to become an island or yet to be determined. So we were hoping to move it down towards the door.
Okay.
Instead of on the corner.
Right. You can see where Laura just pulled up and is presenting the door. You can see there's I guess it's a black, I don't know, key or something that's directly in front of the door right now. And that was my concern, is somebody pulling in there. And then, if they pull up too far, having access, if you're going to use it as your primary point of ingress, egress, I'm okay with that. If you were to move the handicap spot and put the, where you have the blue striping, so it allows like the handicapped vehicle to be able to open the door or whatever, so that would be open, so that would prevent any safety concerns. That's an option also. I would be good with that, or just striping the one in front of the door, or modifying the striping to keep a path in front of that door open so people have access to the building. I guess I'm good either way, Mr. Lange. But I think we need to, have some kind of a condition that states so, there's going to be some kind of a follow-up on that. What's your timetable? Are you actually planning on doing any restriping or changes or soon, or?
We can't, even if we do the construction interiorly, which it's all interior, but we can't do anything with the space until the State Board of Pharmacy comes in and approves it. So we almost have to build it and then show them what we did and then have them approve it, because it goes outside of our registered area. So until the pharmacy board approves it as a registered area, we can't use it at all anyway. And I don't know what their time frame to do is.
Right, but your intent is to use that as the entrance door sooner or later if you get approval, so sounds like.
Yeah. Yes. And then the door on Knott Street will remain there, but that door will go into a smaller area, which is the front of the store now, which we're going to use for a counseling area or vaccines possibly, but it will be an appointment-based only like room.
Yeah. Okay.
And the front of the pharmacy will be the beauty salon.
So I'm going to propose that, it sounds like I think we're aligned and we're not going to cause you any concern, because, you want to do what's right over there anyway. So we should have some kind of a condition that the parking arrangement, at least be approved by the planning office or something at that point in time when your approval is in place and you're ready to, relocate the parking spots as discussed. I don't think that's a big deal. It would just be a matter of whatever your plans are after they're drawn up, is presenting them to the planning office and just making sure that, okay, so it's safe, for safe, you have appropriate ingress, egress, and it's safe, and that's it. And I think that would be good for you and good for,
Right. I mean, in addition to those words, Chairman Walsh, the key thing is that you actually don't want a parking spot in front of the entrance. Right?
Yeah, right. That's the key. But if it's part of the handicap and
if
it's
it's
the
part of the
blue
handicap,
spot,
that's fine, I think.
and it's the blue spot, like if you have a van that opens up into that area, and so nobody would be parked there, I'd be okay with that. It just, I just worried about somebody pulling in there.
Yeah, that's the way it is now. There's actually two spots that are handicapped. One is the parking spot, and one is the open area that has to be next to it. Mm-hmm. So either side of the door would be the handicapped, and the middle would be the blue striped area that would be in front of the door.
All right. So that's my primary concern, is that we have, just make sure we have a follow up on that. I know you have good intentions. We just want to, so maybe we can add a condition, and I could give you some help here from the planning office. Condition that just says that the parking strategy or parking layout to be reviewed once proposed by the applicant for approval by the planning office, and and they would take into consideration making sure that the door is accessible, without a car pulling right up to the front step of it, kind of thing. So Laura's looks like she's working on some words here.
I muted myself. This is just my first take. If you guys have a better idea, but prior to final certificate of occupancy, because we don't really know what the timeline will be for his approval. So typically they're not required to restripe until final certificate of occupancy, and that's when the building inspectors check for ADA and everything anyway. So that's just my recommendation. We'll just say certificate of occupancy. That's probably better. So prior to certificate of occupancy, the handicap parking spaces shall be relocated to the side entrance of the building with the no parking hash marks in front of the door to help with overall access to the building.
Yep, that's good. We could just change instead of side entrance, the west entrance. I guess that's probably about it.
Really better, because it could become the main entrance. So, and then also, Dan and I had talked about, like, he may come back with some facade and signage changes, but he won't know until later. So this is our first look at it, so he's able to go through the rest of his permitting process, but he may come back, and when we're looking at signage, we can also still just double check on parking spaces with him.
Great. That works for me. Again, I just had a safety concern, Mr. Lange. I support your business and I want you to be successful. Just seemed like walking out that door, somebody pulling up would probably scare you pretty good, All right, so I that sounds good.
We have people run into the building.
What's that?
We have people run into the building.
Okay.
I hear you.
And I think this is, by the way, this is one of the most cost-effective ways too, by the way, because we could say, we wanted bollards put in front of there to prevent, and I know that would be more of a hardship for you, because that would take into engineering and, locating any under, digging and construction and so on and so forth. So I think this works with minimal impact to you, Mr. Khan, do you have anything on this?
It's fine. I actually had once we're done voting on it, I do have a general interest question for Mr. Lange.
Okay. All right, any other comments? So I'm going to make a motion that we modify the resolution, add that condition regarding the handicap parking spot and access to the west door that Laura just drafted. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Khan. Thank you. Okay, we have a modified resolution. Any other discussion on the modified resolution? Okay. We'll after we vote, then we can have Mr. Khan talk what he has there, but we'll call the roll on the resolution as amended.
Mr. LaFlemme.
Aye.
Mr. Scributinus.
Aye.
Mr. Khan.
Aye.
Mr. McPartland.
Aye.
Mr. Darpino.
Aye.
Mr. Oster.
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The resolution for site plan and tenant change at 2207, 2209 Knott Street's approved. Thank you, Mr. Lange, and good luck with everything, and we'll keep in touch with you. Mr. Khan, you had something?
Sure, Mr. Lange, I mean, since you're here, if you don't mind, I just wanted to know what your thoughts and concerns, perspectives are of conducting business while the construction is going to be going on Knott Street. Did you have?
As of right now, we have the front door of the pharmacy closed anyway because it's so small. We have no way of disinfecting after people come in. So we've only been doing curbside, and probably 90% of our business is now delivery. So we're pretty much in construction mode now. I mean, so when the construction starts on the front of Knott Street, it shouldn't. We'll just continue to do what we're doing. We're doing all free local deliveries, and anyone that comes in, they just call us when we get here, and we bring it out to the car. So we're practicing.
Do you know about any of the neighbors, what they're doing? Have you guys talked, or your adjacent businesses?
The only neighbor we have is across the street, and the house is empty at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks. We're just interested to know what a business owner thinks about with the construction. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Lange. Appreciate it.
Any improvement? Thank you.
Okay, we're all set on resolutions under new business tonight, so we'll move on the agenda and for discussion. The first and the only discussion item is zoning code updates, which were included in our packet. Laura, did you want to talk about where we stand on that?
Yeah, so I took everything that really wasn't done out because essentially the town board is calling for a public hearing and enacting a local law limiting vaping in parks. And so they pushed pretty hard at Economic Development Committee meeting for us to finalize the e-cigarette and the vaping and the no vaping and marijuana within the 1,000-foot radius of schools and daycares. And so, well, that's their main point. Like some of this stuff we vetted pretty thoroughly so far. So we might as well just do those code changes while we can. So, yeah, so quickly, we're adding the language within a 1,000-foot buffer to schools and daycares that there would be no sale of tobacco, vaping, and marijuana products. Then just a technicality, we got some legal opinion that ad hoc members of the ZBA, ad hoc isn't really the appropriate word, and you want to make sure that it's alternate. So that's just a quick update to the text. We just added the definitions for EV charging stations and EV ready spots, and just put like sample, like consider EV charging stations in the code to try and help with climate smart communities. And sorry, I don't know why my phone's ringing. My dad is telling me. Oh no, I lost my thing. Oh yeah, we changed the sign size for temporary signs. Just because there's no limit to temporary signs, and we ran into problems with that when the new building on Union Street was going up. It had an enormous temporary sign, like almost the size of a small building. And then there just aren't setbacks in the neighborhood mixed use for a neighborhood mixed use building in the CN district. So we're just adding those in. They're just an average of the neighborhood mixed. They're just an average of the CN district setbacks. We've added in the non-visible fences. We've looked at that before. And then the only one that I'm still like, I don't know if we should really put it in or out is the Airbnb. So like 1 through 6, they're all pretty fine. We've talked about them before, and I think we can just move forward and call a public hearing on them if you guys are comfortable with them. The Airbnb, I hate taking it out of the zoning code amendments again, but I really leave that one up to you guys.
I feel like Airbnb, I mean, I think it still needed some work, and we've discussed it. I think it needs almost its own task force to look into it. And I think it's less urgent now during COVID than it would be otherwise to move forward with it. So if we can get these on the agenda for the agenda meeting at town board to call for a public hearing for the end of August, I think we can leave Airbnb off, but, you know, put a pin on it for now. But obviously it's up to you guys.
No, I'm good. I'm personally good with the town's recommendation, Alexis or Laura. The only question, well, one thing I would like is to send out a Word document of those again, because it's so hard. I used to mark them up and hand them to you. So if you send out a Word, I can do and track changes, any comments I may have. I didn't really see any. I read it over, but just send that out to everybody, and then if any people have the opportunity, they can take a look at it and give you direct feedback on any changes they recommend. We can review those at our next meeting. All right. I did have one question on the. It was Airbnb. It talks about all the changes in the code for RP, I guess it was, or RR80 to allow Airbnb. is it already allowed short-term rentals in the R1? That's why R1 wasn't there? Yeah.
No, nope. That's an oversight.
But Laura, aren't short-term rentals allowed? You know, if people rent out their house, people do that in R1 all the time.
So we don't regulate them. Essentially, as long as a single family home is operating as a single family, like if somebody's renting it out but if somebody's renting it out under Airbnb and it's like a group of, college or kids or somebody and, they're using it and they're not related, then it's not falling under the definition of a single family occupying a single family home. I mean, they're technically in violation of our zoning code. So there isn't anything that prohibits a single family home being occupied by a different single family occasionally, but you can't rent out like single bedrooms and have non-related people being renting out your house.
All right. So the intention was to include R1 in the short-term rentals or the Airbnb.
Yeah, and R2. I don't know. So it's jumping from A to D. So I think somehow a copy and paste. We're missing B and C, which is R1 and R2. But if we're taking Airbnb out, I'm completely fine with that. I mean, I hate pushing it to the side, but I think that the directive right now is they really want to get the 1,000-foot buffer approved. So just put anything that is non-controversial so that we can discuss that and move it forward in with the code amendments, and then work on other things as they come along.
So we're going to need a public hearing also at the planning board.
Yeah, we could call for a public hearing for the next meeting.
August.
Yeah, we can call for a public hearing at the next meeting, but the CAC still has to do their secret recommendation. That's a sacred code. So we could call for a public hearing and a potential recommendation to the town board while the CAC is doing their secret recommendation, if you guys are comfortable with that. The CAC has also seen this before. They've just never taken the final steps. So I don't expect that it's going to be a problem with the CAC either. It's just a matter of finalizing all the work that we did last year.
Well, my viewpoint is that we call for the public hearing and go forward on everything but the Airbnb. It sounds like we still got to make some changes, and the legal departments would like to work on it a little bit more too. So, that'll keep the town board going, right? Everything but the Airbnb. So why don't we just do that for now and make it easy for everybody? Easier, never easy. So, does that sound good to everybody else?
Yep.
And then Laura Clark will get out the Word document to us, later this week, so we can start looking it over. If you have any comments, we can feed those back, and then we can take our comments along what we hear from the public, and then we can have a recommendation to the town board. Okay. All right.
All right.
No
And our
opposed?
expectation, that sounds good. And thank you, Chairman Walsh. And our expectation is that a next revision of this is going to include something of the code is going to include something with chickens.
Oh, no, the chickens got taken out of the zoning code amendments. The town board is considering enacting them as a separate chapter.
Okay.
So we are removed essentially from the chicken conversation.
Okay, right. I thought you'd said it last time, but I didn't fully.
Yeah.
Some of the difficulties I was having, I didn't fully actually. So,
But, I mean,
so we're not going to
if
look
you
at chicken.
guys have opinions, because I mean, you have lived chicken code stuff. It just so happened that due to COVID, there was a lot of pressure from residents who wanted to grow their own food and be safe and have a source of protein that didn't require them going to grocery stores. That the town board took that on and made it and considered that it should probably be a separate chapter with separate types of enforcement and delineation of duties. But I mean, certainly, you guys have experience with it. So if you have thoughts, I mean, please take a look at it and send comments. It is out for public hearing tomorrow. And then, we would take all those comments. My staff has comments too, and then maybe wrap it into a final code for August, potentially. Okay. Not knowing how they vote, but
it'll be a separate section of the code. Okay.
Yeah, and so the current draft is actually posted on the town website at the town board page under public announcements. So you can just go to that public hearing and click on the code, take a look at it, and then if you have any comments, send them to me or Alexis.
Okay. So then for us as a planning board, the next thing on our agenda will be Airbnb at some point.
Yeah, and other code amendments, as they come up. But I think Airbnb, I took out a couple other ones, little ones.
Okay.
Airbnb is the one that we struggle with just because I just the code is difficult, just is.
And Laura, are you experiencing any Airbnb inquiries, issues coming to you from the public?
I mean, not recently. The reason that it does come up as code is occasionally we do get complaints. Although I did say that, I mean, it is technically enforceable. If somebody's having a big party and there's clearly a bunch of cars from all different states, COVID aside, you know, they're not in compliance with the zoning if it's not a single family that's living in a single family home.
And in that instance, you knew it was a short-term rental?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we've done some citations of that just to keep people on notice. It's a little bit harder. I think sometimes people renting bedrooms flies under the radar a little bit. But if the rentals do cause problems and, you know, create problems in the neighborhood and the building department gets notified through complaints, it's very clearly not allowed in our code right now to rent bedrooms and stuff. So that's an easy enforcement thing for us. I think it's the short-term rental of the full house. Like if we want to govern it with building inspections to give people an expectation of safety when they're renting houses in Niskuna and that kind of thing, we haven't fully vetted that.
Okay. Any other questions for our planning office or for Ms. Kim? No? All right, so we'll move forward with the all the proposed zoning code updates except for Airbnb at this time, and take a look at what the town board's proposing for chickens on the town website. I know that there's a matter of opinion. Some I think on our board also for and against. I'm kind of on the fence personally, but you can get your input to the town board. All right. Anything else under discussion items?
Just a clarification. We're okay actually calling for the public hearing to be on August 10th on that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Laura. Thank you. I am. Is anybody concerned with a public hearing? Anybody opposed to having the public hearing?
No.
Okay. Hearing none opposed.
So we'll be having two public hearings. On
no,
August
just one.
Just one. The other one we're calling for a public hearing for the 24th for the nights. If that's what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So because minor subdivision actually requires you to do a secret determination when you call for a public hearing. That's not a requirement of most of the other actions in our code, but because that one requires a secret determination at the time that the public hearing is called, I delayed that one to August 10th so that we'll have time for the secret letters to come back.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Laura, anything else under discussion?
Nope.
Okay, and then under reports, we're going to do a COVID-19 update. I don't know if that's Ms. Kim or Laura.
Yeah. Yeah, Laura, do you want me to take this?
Sure.
Yeah, so this is the executive order allowing for remote meetings expires August 6th. It's very likely that Governor Cuomo will extend it for another 30 days like he did the prior executive orders. That said, the town hall is open by appointment only, and Supervisor Syed has cleared for remote, we can do quasi-remote where people have the option of participating remote by video conference or coming in person, but we can start transitioning past the August 6th date. So it's up to you guys how you want to proceed with the August 10th meeting. We did order microphones so that each person who's sitting at the board table in the boardroom will have their own microphone. We're trying to install plexiglass, or the sneeze guards that will be between each of the board members since it won't be possible to social distance. This is more of a discretionary for the planning board to decide on what they want to do for August 10th. But we do need to kind of have an answer so we can figure out the logistics of the thermometer, the temperature taking. We do have a wall-mounted thermometer that's right at the entrance of the town board, but we need to have a visitor log kept of everyone who will be entering.
I guess my only comment is that thank you for working on this, as always, Ms. Kim. Is that I don't want to rush the town until they're ready. I don't want to say do it on August 10th and then cause everybody that, the town employees and everybody to try to make sure we got everything functioning. It seems like we need to do a test with all the microphones. I know we've had microphone issues in the past. And I also think that if we're going to have the combined meeting where we're streaming and taking people over the computer along with the meeting, which I assume Laura or Mr. Henry would be coordinating, as the Wi-Fi and town hall capable of handling all that. So I don't know if the thought was just to do a dry run, and I would volunteer to come over can help out and sit at one of the microphones if you'd like to do that. So I don't want to put you in recommend that we have it on the 10th if you're not ready. I think I'd rather have you guys say that you're ready to do it, and then I would support that.
Yeah, I think that maybe I would recommend waiting for the town board to host their first in-person meeting. It kind of let the town board, their meeting tomorrow will be held remotely, but then the thinking is that the one in August 25th will be the quasi remote and in person. So if you want to wait to do your first planning board meeting until after the town board has theirs, rather than be the first board in the boardroom with the
or if they need us to be the first because like this to take the lead and get the bugs out, I'm okay with that too. So I'm really, for me, and again I'll let everybody else's opinion, but for me it's whatever Ms. Kim and Ms. Robertson, whenever you're ready, and I'm okay with that personally. What's everybody else?
Kim, what's the plan for residents who come that are participating for either speaker or for privilege of the floor or public hearings?
So I mean, the boardroom will be taped off. Every other seat will be removed so people aren't sitting next to one another. They'll have to have their temperature taken, so we'll have to stagger and remind them to come a little bit early. And I mean, the protocol has been they'll be treated like any other visitor, like how the people in the courtroom will be treated when that court opens in August. Use hand sanitizer before you come in. If you've been in the town hall, the downstairs is all blocked off to prevent people and members of the public from wandering the town hall. It'll be very directed that they just go straight to the boardroom. And I think we'll have the occupancy limited, capped at 50%, but that tends to not be a problem.
So I have one question. Do we have an option? For example, if the state allows us to meet in person, do we have an option period or an option in an absolute sense to continue meeting online, or a period in which we can meet online?
Yeah, as long as the executive order is extended to suspend open meeting laws to allow, to suspend the in-person requirement, then we can still meet remotely. We're not.
No, I understand, but let's say that executive order allows us to meet.
Yes, then we can meet online for as long as we want, and it's probably recommended. I think that's what the assembly is going to be doing.
Okay, thanks. Yeah,
I have two questions. It's Leslie. One, I presume masks will be allowed?
Yeah, they'll be required.
Good. The other thing is, do we know what kind of filtering system the HVAC has in Town Hall?
Yeah, I've talked to our building maintenance officer, Charlie Bergami, and he's been checking them. And I sent him the specs from CDC. And obviously, it's a smaller building, so it's not the same specs as the mall. But he's been checking all of them at town facilities to make sure they're at the right humidity requirements. And I mean, unfortunately, there's no windows in that boardroom unless we were to open an emergency exit.
Yeah. So I guess where I stand again is whenever you guys are ready, if you need to do a dry run, I would support that. And if you're ready, I'll support your recommendation. Does anybody else have any concerns about that? Like I said, I hate to say let's do it August 10th and A, gets postponed anyways, and then we do it virtually, or B, we're not ready and have a problem, we can still do it virtually. So, well,
you don't have to state it here, but everybody has their own particular family situations and the particular health needs that they have. So even if we do decide to hold the meeting in person, I think that it's a hybrid for board members as well. So you guys can email me, separately. You don't have to state anything, for all the world to hear, but you don't have to come to the town hall if you're not comfortable or you have things that you need to protect. No, that's true of everyone. We'll work with you for whatever you need. I don't really know if we're ready to have a public meeting planning board wise there yet. I mean, I think we could get there if you guys really wanted to try, but I also really don't want to force anybody if they're not comfortable.
I guess to me, because these extensions, I don't want to say they've gone on autopilot, but I think Alexis is right. I think there's a pretty good shot that it's going to be continued. Why even plan it now? I mean, I guess theoretically we could then plan it for the August 24th meeting. If in fact it's then, if we do have the go ahead at August 6th? Why even plan it now if it's literally going to be 4 days before the next meeting?
Yeah, we have to decide where we would hold the meeting based because we are calling for the public hearing, and we notice in the public hearing, so we can't change it once we put it in the public hearing that we've just called for the zoning code amendments. So the conservative thing to do, because you can't change it, would be to at least hold the August 10th meeting remotely, and then by then we might have a good sense if we can be ready for the August 24th meeting, because that would also be a public hearing. So.
That sounds reasonable to me. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do right now.
So Laura, just a question on logistics. If we do keep it hybrid and the options available to the public as well, to the board members, is there some sort of multimedia screen that we'll all be able to look at if we're there physically, like what we're looking at now, or will we all be required to bring our own laptop and log in as participants? Will the Wi-Fi be enabled to support that? So logistically, do we have any idea of how this will flow?
Yeah, because Clark has brought that up to me a couple of times, because he thinks that a shared screen is really useful. You know, because sometimes applicants, you know, bring in small plans that nobody can see, and, you know, we have them all electronically. So it is kind of nice to be able to, you know, see things on screen and see people's faces if they're participating remotely. But as far as I know, the boardroom right now, I'm not sure how we do that. Like, maybe we could stream it. Like, there's some thoughts for it, but like integrating video right now in that room is difficult. I think right now we're talking about integrating audio only.
I mean,
we might be able to think of a way, because I think video is very useful, but
well, it may not be for this call, but I'm just going to put out there, I don't know what the risk would be, since we're all using devices right now, to bring them in and just use the platform. Use Google as the means to video integration is probably the cheapest way for us to do it. The only issue is when people are physically there and they don't have the screen, they'll have to have something to look at. But in terms of a camera capturing all of us, you know, collaboratively, I actually would vote to bring our laptop in and just use the Google platform. It takes a lot of the expense out of it.
I like that. You do get feedback on individual devices, so I don't know how you would get the audio to work on Google Meets.
Well, so we'd have to have one audio, so we have to mute and have one audio microphone that taps in as the audio for those in the room.
And at least one of us does not have a laptop to bring.
Yeah, and that would be, so you would have to definitely, and that's going to be the case, I think, on any board. The town would have to provide laptops for anybody, or maybe everybody, just have town laptops available at every station that just turn on and work for people. I don't know.
Well, in a COVID-minded society, I think if you have it, bring it. If you don't, then yeah, I think we have to provide it and then sanitize it.
And sanitize it. It's a good idea.
Will the meeting be streamed live on YouTube?
Can we what?
Can you still stream the meeting live on YouTube?
That is the way the boardroom is set up now. So when the high schoolers are in the back, they live stream it on YouTube, which is different than the Google Meets. I do not know if you can do both of them at the same time.
You can't do both of them at the same time, meaning you can't live stream both. But so we couldn't integrate the how we're used to it pre-COVID. That can't be integrated, so it's like a split screen between those on webcam and those present. But we could still record. I mean, I don't. I think we'd have to pick either or, and that's what I talked about with our IT systems administrator, Bill Lawrence. That's what we were talking about in terms of, you know, do we want to just go straight to Google Meets and keep it remotely, or do we want to go back to our old way of doing things where you just watch it on YouTube?
By the way, with Google Meets, do we post the Google Meets recording on YouTube?
We do. Yep.
Yeah.
It takes a second for it to process it, but it gets updated onto the YouTube video usually by the next day.
Yeah. So that was, yeah, not that this is the forum, but I'm thinking if we keep it the Google platform, we have an external microphone and camera, and have that be an added participant in the room then you'll see the room as one of the squares, and we capture it all in Google in that platform. I just, someone else could figure that out. I just actually, as I think it through, I think that may be the most affordable, effective, and familiar way, be hybrid.
Those are good comments, Chris.
Yeah, really good ideas.
Basically, what I heard is just confirms that we wouldn't be ready for August 10th. There's lots of questions out there, so I appreciate that, and that gives the office something to think about, and when they're ready. But that's some good thoughts, Chris. Good questions and comments. Any other thoughts on that? All right, so we'll take it from the lead from Ms. Kim and Robertson. When they're ready, we'll get there. All right. Anything else under COVID reports?
No, but we'll call for the next meeting to be remote for the time being because the public hearing actually gets noticed on Wednesday.
Correct.
It goes really, really fast when we call for a public hearing.
Yep. This next meeting will be virtual, August 10th. All right. Anything else on that subject, Alexis or Laura? Okay. Seeing nothing else, we'll move on to commission business. Thank you, guys. Commission business. Let's see. Mr. Oster, do you have anything for us?
I do not.
Okay, thanks. Mr. D'Arpino?
No.
And Mr. McPartland?
Nope.
No. Mr. Khan?
No.
And Mr. Scrivby-Tennis?
Nope.
Mr. Laflamme?
No, sir.
All right, Ms. Gold?
No, thank you.
And Ms. Shenfield?
Nothing. Thank you.
And the only thing, I only got just one question for the planning office. I know we're talking about 3410 State Street and the ZBA referral. We just had more time to do that because of the schedule. So that'll be next meeting. Is that?
Yeah, because we didn't get the denial to him in time for him to get onto the August ZBA meeting. So his deadline for getting on the September meeting is August 15th. So we have both August meetings essentially be able to do our recommendation. And so he's just working on better plans. Like Clark and I have been in pretty constant contact with him. So yeah, we will definitely see that again in August. And then I did actually want to mention, sorry, for those of you guys following the Kelch Farm, the town board has their public hearing on it tomorrow, and they have scheduled tentative action on the special use permit tomorrow as well. So if you're interested in it, tune into the town board meeting tomorrow.
How is the action articulated?
Is the resolution
Written?
Yeah.
It's written either or. It's both. It's got, unless Alexis changed it, it's got both the planning board as written, and then it's also got as denied. So it's either as written or denied the way that it's posted on the website right now.
And that was by request of the town board. I didn't think they wanted to post a definitive resolution one way or another. So that comments for the public hearing weren't geared one way or another.
Okay, and Lauren, Alexis, do you feel that the town board has been able to hear directly from the residents at an adequate level?
Yeah, I mean,
well, I think they've heard a lot of comments through privilege of the floor over the past couple of months. I mean, Laura, you've heard them. You said they received probably maybe 100 letters collectively.
Yeah. I also copy them on everything that is sent to the planning board, and then I copy you on everything.
No, I just wanted to make it clear. I meant not in the context of a planning board privilege of the floor, but in a town board privilege of the floor. Have they heard directly?
I think it's interesting. You know, people get frustrated with processes and timelines and code, but I'm not sure that. And we struggle with this sometimes with the zoning board. When the zoning board calls a public hearing ahead of time, they get a lot of comments that are related to planning board issues. I'm not sure that the comments that the town board gets are targeted at the special use permit specifically. I think that it's targeted at the overall issues that come with subdivision of that land and, construction of the streets. And so I do worry a little that the comments aren't specific to what the town board is actually taking action on, which is the special use permit. But I mean, I definitely think they have a sense of where the residents are parked, what they want, what they don't want. And, I think they're just trying to figure out what they can do within their power and kind of decide what they see as a right balance.
Is the legal representation the residents hired active in this at all?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely still paying attention and sending comments as they can.
Okay.
I mean, the legal representation is, and the last time I checked, had about 38 to 40 residents of Windsor Drive. But if you look at how many homes are on Windsor Drive, it's actually over 80. So to be fair, the legal representation is probably not even representing over 50% of the people that live on Windsor Drive.
Okay, I mean, I'm just coming from a place where I want to make sure that those voices are heard in the right context to the right board directly and not just as artifacts of public hearing in the planning board.
Yeah.
That's the key thing.
Yeah.
I think they definitely make themselves heard. What I think that we don't always hear is the other side. The people who benefit from the connection. I'm not sure that they are heard, but.
Well, they got to show up to be heard, right?
It absolutely. It is what it is.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Any other comments? Any other business at all? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion adjourned by Mr. Khan and seconded by?
Second.
It sounded like that was Mr. Laflamme in the background there, right? So all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, we'll adjourn the July 27th, 2020 meeting at 8:38 p.m. And I thank you all for your hard work and thank you for your planning office and the legal department.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.